Welcome to the Craftsman interview. I'm here with Lee Kuebler from Milwalky Trace Restaurant, downtown Libertyville. And the purpose of these interviews is really just to get behind the scenes, get to know the entrepreneur or the craftsman, if you will, that are behind the businesses in our local area. So we hope you enjoy it. And let's just jump right into it, Lee. Where did you grow up, and tell us a little bit about your trajectory as far as getting into the food business and becoming a chef?
Okay. So I grew up in Gurnee.
Okay.
Well, between Gurnee and Wadsworth, my mom moved a few times when I was growing up. So I grew up in the area.
Okay. Warren?
Yeah, I graduated Warren Township High School in 2003.
Nice.
So when I turned 19, I decided to move to the city. Just thought it'd be a fun change of scenery. And
Absolutely.
was down there for almost 11 years. And then decided to move back up when the opportunity to open this restaurant came about.
Okay.
So,
What did you do before Milwalky Trace?
before I was here, I've been a chef for about 6 years now.
Okay.
Well, a cook or a chef, depending on how you want to look at it. I went to culinary school at Kendall College.
Okay.
Got my associate's degree there. I cooked the entire time I was in school, so I was in school full-time, cooking full-time. I was working at the Union League Club.
That's a grind.
Yeah, oh man, you have no idea. Good thing I got my practice in, because opening a restaurant's the same thing.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
No, so I was working at the Union League Club of Chicago, which was like an awesome experience, super like classic French food and beautiful art everywhere, and like just a really cool.
It's a great place.
Yeah, it's a cool kitchen to learn in. So I was there while I was in culinary school, left the Union League Club to do my internship at Restaurant Michael in Winnetka.
Okay, yep.
So I did a 3-month unpaid internship there and ended up staying there for 2.5 years. And then when I left there, I landed at Ada Street in Chicago, which is part of the DMK restaurant group. Michael Cornick and David Morton were just unbelievable restaurateurs and super smart business people. Michael Cornick is an unbelievably talented chef. And that's basically, where I kind of grew the courage and the experience to be able to open this place. It's a very similar concept, and those guys just I learned so much from them.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
Did you do, before you went off to Kendall, what did you do? You had some other careers other than being in the restaurant biz?
Yeah, for sure. So I had an interesting career before that. I went to school at the Chicago Botanic Gardens for horticulture, which was a really awesome place to go to school. I mean, it's not an accredited college, but they do a certificate program for like master gardeners through the University of Illinois Extension. And, I originally wanted to get into horticulture and the landscaping side of it, but ended up getting a job with Lighter Greenhouses in Buffalo Grove.
Okay.
And I was managing one of their garden centers, one of their retail garden centers. And just kind of, the owner and I really got along really well, and I ended up getting into the growing side of things. So they do a lot of commercial growing for flowers for like all the Chicagoland Costco's.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Grocery stores, a lot of potted plants, as well as growing all the stuff for their retail garden centers.
Got it. That's a big operation there.
It is, yeah. He's got 15 acres of greenhouses, and when it really got interesting was when he bought a farm in west central Illinois, because he had some land in front of his greenhouses where he'd grow all of his hardy mums.
Okay.
For fall, which is like a huge deal around here.
Yeah.
And
every porch in Libertyville.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of them are probably from Costco, which he grew over there.
Yeah.
But the land that he had leased, the lease was up, and they ended up building some warehouses there. He bought this farm, and I went down to the farm to kind of get it operational and start growing the mom operation down there. And it was
nice.
Really interesting. I lived in a tent for probably about a month while we were
Really?
building a living quarters for me in the warehouse.
That's
and everything.
awesome.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'd go down there for 8 months, and grow flowers and be a farmer, and then I'd come back to the city for the winter and work in the greenhouses.
Where'd you live in the city?
Most of my time was in Ukrainian Village or West Town.
Okay.
So like the northwest side of Chicago, which is I really love it up there. It's a great neighborhood.
Yeah, we used to live in Mayfair.
Okay. Yeah.
So we lived across the street from the Irish Center.
Yeah, very
If you know
cool.
where that is on Knox and Wilson.
Yeah.
Lived all over the city, but it's a great place to. I mean, talk about culture. I mean, Chicago's a world-class city for all of that
sure
stuff.
is.
It's a great place to be as far as food. So what prompted you to leave the gardening business and then go into the food business? They probably hated to see you leave.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I'm sure he hated it, but, we get along really well, and, he was happy that I was moving on to do something I really wanted to do. The growing thing I kind of fell into, and, I felt very committed to it, and I felt very committed to Mark Leiter in particular, and it just got to a point where, like, I wasn't really happy doing it anymore, and I definitely felt a little too young to be in such a rural area for such a big part of my year.
Makes sense.
8 months out there is, it was in the middle of nowhere, and it was beautiful. There's four-wheelers, and I went fly fishing in a creek down there. We had a lake. I went bow hunting for deer. Tons of stuff to do, but isolating at the same time. Your staff's there during the day, but then every night you're just kind of like,
living in your tent.
What do you do? Yeah. Well, that was for a short period. That was pretty interesting because it was cold and it was early, but it's like, growing flowers is very similar to a restaurant in the sense that there's like this very immediate sense of urgency as far as like the weather is concerned and water, and like plants can't wait for anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you need to get an operation going, you need mums by a certain date. Like, they have to be planted. It has to be ready. So there was no living quarters, but it had to be done. So I brought my tent and we did it.
That's awesome. That's
so
a
it's
cool
pretty
story.
Cool. But food had always been a hobby and a passion of mine. I always loved to cook. I was always with my mom in the kitchen. And, never really cooking anything fancy, but just loved cooking.
Yeah.
And I loved food, and it got to a point where like I spent so much of my free time and money cooking and eating. I was like, if I don't do this for a living, I'm gonna go broke. So I did. One year I decided, I came up one weekend and visited Kendall College and pretty much made my decision and told Mark it'd be my last year and helped him train a guy to take my place, and went off to school. Just did it.
That's
just
a great story.
Dove in head first.
Now, tell me if this is a stretch, but has that business, the gardening business and all that, how has that informed your cooking? I gotta believe that there's some kind of relationship there with freshness and quality and stuff. Is that a stretch, or is that?
No, I don't think so at all. For sure, one of my favorite things about being on the farm was like I had a really awesome garden, vegetable garden.
Okay.
And I think just like, I don't know, being that close with like live products or fresh products, being in nature, and definitely being on that farm inspired a lot of how I cook.
Okay.
You get to see, how life really works and how important it is, and it helps you respect food when you're going to, cook it, because you've seen it at its earliest stages, and I think that's really cool.
Right.
Do
you have a favorite dish or favorite style? It sounds like you've made your rounds, and if you went to Kendall, you've done French, you've probably done Asian
for
cooking,
sure.
all kinds of
No,
different
Kendall's
things.
like a really cool, introduction to a lot of like world cuisines,
Yeah.
And I can't say I've had a ton of like in-depth experience with a lot of cuisines from around the world. I'm very classically trained in the French tradition.
Okay.
At the Union League Club. Even Kendall's program is very French-based. Most culinary programs are. The rest of it just comes from reading and research, and working with some chefs, that have a lot of experience with some of this stuff. I'm not sure I have a favorite. It bounces around a lot. Right now I think my menu is like seems very heavily Spanish influenced.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I've got an octopus dish that's very Spanish. I've got a pork shoulder dish with clams that's like super like Portuguese, But at the same time, like I'll go through phases where the menu's very Asian, or very Vietnamese or very Thai. Asian is a very broad term.
Right.
It's a bummer. I actually had a conversation with someone. We were eating pho the other day at a restaurant, and their pho's great. but they had all these other styles of Asian cuisine on the menu, and it's like, it's sad to me that some of these Asian restaurants fall into this trap of like, we're an Asian restaurant, so we have to have all these things that Americans assume should be here, you know, and it's a bummer. So that was my.
You'd rather see somebody kind of pick a lane and just go.
Yeah,
for
you
it
know,
and
for sure. And
yeah.
obviously, you know, I mix things here or whatever, but that's what we do, you know.
We'll talk a little bit about the response from the community here. What date did you open?
We opened March 4th, so we're like rounding the corner on a year right now.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we opened March 4th. You know, the weather was actually pretty similar to this at the time.
Yeah, crappy.
Oh man, it was such a cold spring last year.
It's kind of a bummer.
No, but I mean, we've been received really well by the community. I mean, just since day one, you know, and we've had a really busy winter, which I think speaks volumes about how well we've been receptive here. 'Cause it's like the locals that keep us busy all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
Are you able
I
to
couldn't feel more blessed.
Are you able to see, you know, be it through data on credit cards or whatever, where your clientele is coming from? I mean, can you say, hey, you know, 80% of our business is local Libertyville residents, or we're drawing? I've always been fascinated with, now that you're here, Shaku,
Yeah.
John up at Pizzeria DeVille, we've got this awesome scene happening.
Yeah.
And I'm always curious on a Thursday night when it's busier than heck, or a Friday or a Saturday, where are these people coming from? Is it mainly our zip code, or do you guys dig into that at all? Or
I
do you just...
wish we had something that kind of tracked where people were coming from, but we don't. You know, I'm lucky in the sense that, like, I cook right over there in that kitchen, you know, and I'm looking at the dining room all night while I'm cooking, so I see who's here.
Yeah.
And for sure, it's a lot of locals.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
we've got
Yeah.
regulars that come in 2 to 4 nights a week, you know, that walk here because they live in town, or but as far as where everyone else is coming from, it's hard to say. I mean, Libertyville is becoming a destination for restaurants.
Definitely.
People are coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
We get people that take the train up from the city.
Yeah.
You know, the metro's so
That
close,
makes
makes it
sense.
really convenient. I know we get a ton of people from the North Shore. We get a lot of that. Vernon Hills, Mundelein. I mean, it's just, they're coming from everywhere.
From everywhere,
But
yeah.
it's the, you know, Libertyville's really like the driving force behind it.
That's great.
You know, and I think it's the word of mouth from the locals that are so proud of the community and what's going on here. That really is what draws people in from other areas, as they tell their friends, and it just kind of keeps spreading.
Yeah, I don't know how to articulate it, but I love the community. I mean, that's kind of why we're doing this.
Yeah.
I just love the loyalty and the support that the community has
It's
for
unbelievable.
creative endeavors, be it restaurants, art, you know, music.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So the scene is happening. There's a lot of restaurants in town. I ask everybody the same question. Too many restaurants, not enough? Do you have a philosophy on this? I've heard a couple different answers to that question.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I definitely think at some point you can reach a level of saturation. I don't think Libertyville is there yet. You know, I think at this point, you know, because it's becoming a destination for restaurants right now, I think the more the merrier. You know, the more of a draw there is, the better it's going to be from everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and there's a lot of styles of restaurant that are not represented in downtown Libertyville, and I think there's room for it. I definitely think there's room for it. Whether people want that or not, I'm not sure. It seems that everyone enjoys coming down here and eating and drinking on the weekends, so I just don't see why more options would hurt. You know, it's just going to bring more people in. You know, it's just going to put us on the map more.
Who do you think? Obviously, you guys are doing a phenomenal job. Who do you think's doing it right in town? I mean, put you on the spot a little bit, but do you have a favorite place, or
No, I mean, you know, I think
somebody's knocking it out of the park?
everyone's doing a pretty good job. I mean, if we have the reputation we have here in downtown Libertyville, I think it's for a reason. It's because, like, I think everyone's really firing on all cylinders. My favorite places to, like, go hang out and frequent, I mean, the Firkin has just been killing it for however 10, 15 years. I mean, they're just like, it's awesome. It's lively, it's fun in there. Their beer program is unbelievable, like unrivaled by even most beer places in the city. I mean, they knock it out of the park consistently.
Yeah. That's true.
John over at Pizza DeVille obviously is just like doing a great job, and I love that he's got a live fire in his restaurant. You know, I think it's great, and you know, I think it's great that, like, you know, he came in and he was so passionate about doing one thing right that he just went for it. I mean, he doesn't even have a stove, which is so cool. You know, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, he's dedicated.
Yeah, for
which
sure.
which is beautiful because you know a lot of people think that constraint is a constraint when it actually is a multiplier because if you're creative, you know, I was at the dinner that he did where you were the guest chef.
Yeah, that was
and
a blast.
that was awesome. I mean,
what was cool about that is like, you know, I went over there and I'm like, you know what? He's like, I've got induction burners, or do you need to, you know, prep most of the stuff at your restaurant? And I'm like, no, I designed the menu to use your oven. Like, that's why I'm here, you know? And it was cool to like design a menu that utilized what he has over there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we were cooking Swiss chard and greens and vegetables in there, which is like,
yeah, it was
awesome,
great.
you know?
It was great.
It was
I was
really
on the
fun.
receiving end of that. It was good, man. It's good. It's good. In fact, the pig head was a little bit of a shocker to some of the ladies at our table. It was
were you at that table?
Yeah, it was.
There was one table that had
they put a napkin over the head.
Yeah. And then there was another table of ladies that were like passing it around and asked if they could take it home. So I knew it was going to be a thing that, you know, would be a little bit of a shocker, but I did it on purpose, and John and I thought it would be a lot of fun to see what would happen. And it was a bit of a social experiment.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun, man. It was a ton of fun. It got everybody talking, and the food was just spectacular. So
Thanks.
good job.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad to hear you say it got people talking, because that's like, you know, one of my core philosophies here, and one of the reasons I wanted to do a shared plates restaurant is like getting people to sit down and interact with each other and interact with the food. And I think dining like that has become, you know, less and less prevalent now.
Okay.
You know, people sit down and eat their meal and not really talk. It's just like more of a necessity than it is, you know, something to really enjoy. And I think Libertyville's kind of like grabbed onto that ideology and ran with it, because it's been awesome. There's been a couple times where I've taken it too far. The patio, when we first opened it, was just a long run of communal seating on picnic tables.
Okay.
And people, I think it was a little too close for comfort.
Okay.
You know, where I'm, you know, been living in the city for so long, my fiance and I, and that's just like how it is down there.
Yeah, you're sitting right next to your neighbor.
You know, and you can tell with the seating here, everyone sits pretty close.
Yeah.
But that one was like, you know, I try to push it and push people a little out of their comfort zone, and that one was a little too much, so we bought new patio furniture. I still got to make money, otherwise no one's sharing anything.
Absolutely.
You know?
So talk a little bit more about that. I mean, you know, get geeky about food. The level of engagement when it's a shared thing, I think that's huge, and that's what I love about dining and entertaining myself.
Yeah.
When we're at home, the one thing that I've learned over time is, you know, you got to do it family style or shared stuff, because you get people passing things around. Let me try some of that. Let me try some of that.
Otherwise, it's like you each have your own plate of food, and you know, you're like, "How's your chicken? Oh, it's good. How's your steak? Oh, it's good." But when you're sharing something, it's like, man, did you try those Brussels sprouts? Did you taste that cilantro and that mint, or like, you know?
Yeah.
And there's something that connects the two of you to the thing that's in the middle of you, you know?
Right.
And I think that's what's really important and really cool about it. I mean, I like to eat like that. Even growing up, my family went out to eat. Everyone was trying stuff off each other's plates, and I'm just like, well, why not just do it on purpose?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And dining like this, it's been big in the city for 10 years now. The shared plates concept is definitely nothing new. I definitely did not come up with it, but I love it, you know?
So I'm far from being a foodie, but is there a difference between what you're saying, shared and tapas? I mean, talk.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference. So really, you know, tapas has gotten very muddled in America. Tapas literally means to top. So when you go to a bar in Spain, a tapas bar in Spain, it's a tiny little plate of food that you literally use to top your drink.
Oh.
And in the olden days, it was to keep bugs and flies or whatever out of your drink. So it was literally a plate of food this big.
Okay.
So tapas are meant to be very small, little, just single bites of food almost.
Okay. See, I didn't know the history. That's pretty cool.
Whereas shared plates, like, you know, I've got a 12-ounce steak on the menu, you know, or I've got a big chunk of pork shoulder covered in clams and broth. So I think shared plates and tapas are definitely different. We use tapas to explain it to people sometimes because they don't really understand tapas and family styles. Like, people are like, oh, I get it. Because when you say shared plates, they're like, oh, what do you mean? But as soon as you say tapas or family style, I think it's something they're a little more familiar with.
Yeah, kind of anchors their thinking.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the difference, you know. And every once in a while, I definitely do some plates that I would consider tapas that are small, like kind of one bite things like that. But most of what I do is fairly larger format, you know, more satisfying dishes, you know, larger things to be shared for sure.
So how does what does Milwalky Trace look like 3 years from now? Is it you just keep going and doing your thing?
Yeah, you know, I'm sure the food will evolve, you know, as I evolve as a cook and a chef, and as, you know, my staff continues to grow and, you know, take ownership of the kitchen and you know, bringing ideas and stuff. And hopefully, as I'm not so busy, I'll get to travel a little bit, and that'll inspire me. I think the core of the restaurant's going to stay the same, you know, and hopefully the food will just evolve with me and continue to get better. And
just continue to get rooted in your craft and keep doing what you're doing.
You know, which is what I do. You know, I mean, I really like to make sure I'm getting really awesome products and just treating them really well. You know, I mean, that's definitely been my biggest hurdle is this kind of idea of perceived value on the plate. You know, because I get a lot of my produce from local farms, which isn't always cheap. You know, all my fish I get in whole, fresh, never frozen fish. I break them down myself.
Got it.
It's not a cheap way to get fish, always, you know. I make sure it's from sustainable fisheries and, like, really make sure that, you know, not only am I paying respect to the end product, but the whole, kind of the whole course of a product's life, you know. You want to make sure that where your fish is coming from, that they're not overfishing the waters and damaging the waters that hopefully the restaurant will continue to get fish from for the next 10 years.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I think I have a responsibility as a chef and a restaurant owner to really make sure that, you know, I'm not hurting our planet and our environment to feed people.
Yeah.
You know, and I think no one has a responsibility to do that than the people that are using the most of the food, which is restaurants.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a great philosophy. Is there anything about Milwalky Trace that perhaps your patrons don't know that you wish they did know, as it relates to maybe it's that freshness piece?
It's pretty much, I think that's probably the biggest thing is, you know, I don't always like to call it out on the menu. Like the menu would be a mile long if I said where everything came from.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And I try, you know, I say, you know, these are Nichols Farm Brussels sprouts, or this is our sustainable fish, but, you know, you can't always just have time to say, like, yeah, this is albacore tuna or yellowfin tuna caught in the Atlantic off the coast of Maine. It was caught this way via hook and line.
Right.
It was, you know, it was
10 hours ago.
It was shipped this way instead
Right.
of that way, so it reduces its carbon footprint, and that's why it's $15.
Right.
You know, so it's, you try to convey that, you educate the server, so if people are like, man, this seems really expensive, and they can explain it. But I think that's the really, like, our biggest challenge here is kind of educating everybody about, you know, we're kind of getting that reputation as being one of the most expensive restaurants in town. And it's like, that kind of bums me out because people kind of make it a special occasion kind of restaurant. But, you know, this is how I try to eat on a daily basis, you know, and there's definitely ways to do it less expensive. But, you know, I mean.
Well, as a chef, that's a great point. I mean, how do you deal with that? How do you pivot? How do you adjust to, or do you just make sure that you get that story out?
I mean, that's pretty much it. You know, I mean, we don't really pivot or adjust. You know, we do our thing, and we just try to do it well. And I think my job as a chef is to, like, make the food taste so good that it doesn't matter to them how much it costs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where it came from. I know it's good. I know what we're doing is right for the food, for the diner, for the environment, and that hopefully when they eat here,
it speaks
they
for
understand
itself.
and it speaks for itself. You know, so I think that's my biggest job. The rest of it is through education and talking and doing stuff like this, and you know, talking to the diners. I'm always here. I'm always in the kitchen. I'm always checking to make sure everyone's enjoying their food, and if they're not, fixing it, finding out why, how to fix it in the future. So I stay pretty connected with my diners, and that's pretty much how I do it. You know, one diner at a time.
That's awesome. The couple things I noticed about your place is you guys have phenomenal cocktails.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that and what your approach is, or do you have a philosophy, or do you just like to get creative? Who's running that part of it? Is it you?
Initially I did. My fiance Christine has since just taken it over and ran with it, which is awesome because she's doing a great job. I'm like, I can't not smile. So I'm so proud that she just like took it and ran with it. But when I was working for DMK Restaurants, they had a really awesome beverage director that worked there, and I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from the cocktail program at Ada Street. And our philosophy here is like, we're really not that creative. You know, we take classic cocktails and honor the tradition of how they've always been made and really do it right. I think cocktails in this country have gotten really dumbed down a lot
Sloppy.
over the years. Yeah, you know, like, people get a lot of old fashions that are just like some whiskey and some cherry juice and, an orange wedge, and there you go.
Right.
But really, like, an old-fashioned, making an old-fashioned the correct way it's a craft for sure.
Yeah.
And we've got this bartender, Peter, that's just awesome. But yeah, we don't do anything creative. We take classics and we just do them right. And we use really good spirits, and we serve them how they should be served. And that's like, we run into the whole value perception thing there too, because, our cocktails seem a little smaller than most places, but it's also got, high-end craft-made spirits.
Right.
And it's all booze. There's no water, there's no cheap booze with a ton of sugar in there.
Right.
It's just like,
it's the real deal.
It's booze stirred on ice, and like, that's
You
it.
guys got some great craft beer here too.
Yeah. I like beer. I love beer, and we don't put a ton of emphasis on our beer program. We love it, and we love that people can come here and get a good beer, but I wouldn't dream of trying to have a big craft beer program being a block away from the Firkin.
Yeah, right. Well, that's
You know
not
what I
your
mean?
wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's just
right.
not. And I love it, and like, we like to support Tight Head, and we carry their beers, and
Yeah, I've had it here.
we have our favorites. Revolution's one of my favorite breweries. We
That's
carry
great.
their stuff, and
Well,
we
you get a
love
lot
beer,
of-
and we love to offer it. Definitely not a very big part of our sales. I think when people come out and they know they're going to spend a little bit more money, it's definitely wine and cocktails is our thing.
So talk a little bit about the wine. What do you have a philosophy on that, or?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, the wine, we kind of stuck with our philosophy for the rest of the menu, which is, keep it simple, keep it small. I'm this kind of person who believes that, like, you don't need an infinite amount of choices. I think one of the things that makes some of the best companies and the best businesses in this country work really well is that they've learned how to, like, limit the choices to what people really want. Like Costco, I think, is a perfect example.
yeah.
They've got 1,000 items, right? That's it. Whereas somewhere like Sam's Club has 10,000 items.
Right.
And Costco is just like a monster,
Yeah.
because they limit choices. So we do the wine program just like that here. We have 4 reds by the glass and 4 whites by the glass. They're all varietals that I think people are very comfortable with and know very well. And we just try to pick wines that are very representative and delicious of that varietal at the right price point.
Yeah.
Is really what we go for. We don't need a ton of wine. We need ones that, Pinot Noir sells.
Right.
Zinfandel sells. Cabernet sells,
Well,
And then
they're
we always-
great with food pairings.
Yeah,
I mean, those
exactly.
are-
And and then we always have like a wild card. Right now, it's our wine by the glass. That's not like a super popular varietal is Malbec. Christine's really into Malbecs right now, so that's what we're doing there.
Great.
And yeah, I just try to offer great wine at a good value and like keep the options simple. I don't want people to have to flip through a whole book of a menu. Like, the idea is you're supposed to sit down, relax, get fed, and enjoy your company.
Yeah,
know?
right. That's the focus.
I don't need to
yeah.
read a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's some people's thing, and there's places you can go to do that, and like, we can't be everything to all people, so we do our thing. Our menus, I wish I had one close. This is it. It's like a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that we fold in half.
Yep.
And this is literally everything we offer. We do have a whiskey list, but I really just try to keep it concise.
High
and-
quality, simple.
Yeah,
Is good.
And that allows you to really focus on every little detail of it. If you had a huge menu, this is my thing is like these restaurants that have huge menus, like there's one item on there, let's say the least popular item, how many times does that get ordered? How many times does that food cycle through the cooler, or how long has it been sitting there? So like
That's
I
so
know
true.
that when we have a small menu, we're blowing through all that stuff almost daily, you know,
Right.
which is great.
Right.
Which is great for our bottom line, and it's great for everybody else that they're just, what they're getting is fresh and prepared every day, you know.
Well, you talk about attention to detail, and you've mentioned Christine. Congratulations, by the way, you're getting married in May,
We are.
right?
May 10th.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
She's got an MFA. She's got a Master in Fine Arts.
Yeah, she did. She went, she did get her master's in fine arts. It was concentrated in, why is it escaping me now? To be like an art curator.
Oh, okay,
Uh-huh.
okay.
So yeah, she's been in the advertising world. She does graphic designer by trade. So she does all of our.
Well, that's kind of where I was going. The design, how much is her fingerprints all over the design of this restaurant?
For sure. I mean, she has done every bit of graphic design since before we opened. She's done our logo, she designs our menus, she does all of our advertising.
Yep.
She designed this this cool piece up here, you know, that's got all the streets in Libertyville.
Yep.
You know, she was the one who kind of sought out all these historic pictures of downtown Libertyville and edited them all and got them blown up and put on canvas like that, which was really cool. So yeah, I mean, her fingerprint is a big one here.
Yeah, well, I've noticed, and I've never, I mean, not a lot of people do a good job of this, and you guys are killing it. On your social media sites,
Yeah,
your photos are stunning.
that's Christine. She's also a really talented photographer.
I mean, the setup with the food, and she'll often have, you know, flowers or
silverware,
silverware
or branding in there.
Yeah, it always stops me because it's just super high quality.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share that with you because there are people that's paying attention to that.
Good.
And,
I'm glad because she works really hard and like, she shows me the pictures she takes and I'm just constantly blown away by it.
it's just beautifully done, and she's got just wonderful taste. So make sure you visit Milwaukee Trace's Facebook page and website because just the design of everything
Yeah.
that you guys have, it's very consistent.
She designed the entire website too.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, coming from the marketing world, you know, she's big on consistency. I mean, she's
Yeah.
like, you know, our branding follows through everything she does, you know,
Yeah.
and I think it's very cohesive. And, you know, when we first opened, I think it was so cohesive and so professional because she was doing it. People were asking us if we were a chain or if we were part of a larger restaurant group. They thought we were like, you know, some guys coming in from out of town and opening a restaurant. And I'm like, this is just, you know, this is our baby. It's just, you know,
Yeah.
my fiance and I running this joint.
Well done,
Yeah.
well done. So it takes a lot of guts to open up a restaurant. I mean, you've been in the business, so I'm not
Yeah.
telling you anything you don't know.
Yeah.
The failure rate is exceptionally high.
Yeah.
What was it like? I mean, did you just say, hey, we're going for it? I mean, what was the process like of deciding to open this up?
Yeah,
And-
well-
and was there anybody key, besides Christine, that was a big part of making this happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the failure rate of restaurants, for one thing, is really no higher than the failure rate of most small businesses.
True, yes.
Which is a little thing that most people don't know is opening a small business, whether it's, you know, an olive oil shop or a
Yep.
spice shop or, you know, a stationery store, it's risky.
Yes.
It's very risky. And there's a lot of moving parts that you have to, like, do just right to get it to work. So, you know, people think you have a successful restaurant and, like, you know, it's that much harder for you, but it's hard for all small businesses.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
But I'm very lucky because there were some key people in this that are just, I can't thank enough. Everyone that invested in this restaurant is a pivotal part of what makes us successful. It's definitely a family affair. My mom is invested in the restaurant. My uncle is invested in the restaurant. My business partner, Jeff Levinger, who owns the building, he's invested in the restaurant. And they are all like, it makes up the best possible team
Yeah.
for opening a successful business. My uncle is a really awesome CPA. He's got a firm in Naples, Florida, so he does all of our accounting.
Wow, that's
and
good.
he does accounting for restaurants down there, so he's got this perspective on what makes things work and how to make the numbers work, and he's constantly giving me ideas and feedback, and really helps make the place profitable. My mom does all the bookkeeping and helps us out.
So they're really involved.
Yeah, she helps us out in all sorts of ways. You know, last minute, Mom, can you run to the store and grab lettuce? Or can you run? You know,
Right.
I'm out of this. You know, make sure you taste them first. You know, make sure it's good. And she's like just awesome that way. You know, she's been like, my mom's been my rock my whole life, but especially now, she's like really pivotal in this restaurant. And Jeff Lovinger, you know, he's owned buildings in downtown Libertyville for 25 years. He's the chairman of the board of Main Street Libertyville. He's been involved with Main Street Libertyville since its inception. I mean, he's one of the people that's really helped make Libertyville what it is today. I mean, the guy's really influential in this town, and I mean, as you can imagine, really helpful. When you own a business in downtown Libertyville.
Well, knows the levers to pull.
Having him on your
relationships.
side. And who to introduce you to and who to talk to about what. And, you know, he's owned other businesses throughout his career that have been really successful. And he's just in general a really good businessman and an awesome resource and like a wealth of knowledge as far as how to make a business successful.
That's great.
So with those three and Christine's graphic design experience and marketing experience and awesome taste as far as drinks and food and photography, and you know, I feel like all I do is cook, you know.
Well, that's perfect, because that's a big job.
Yeah, it is, you know, but sometimes like after just like giving that little speech about how much everybody does, it makes what I do seem a little less important, which, you know, I think I need to remind myself sometimes.
Well, you talked about small businesses being tough. I mean, having people in those key spots is sometimes the downfall. People don't have that. They're trying to do it themselves, or they're not getting any kind of advice from people who've been around the block a little bit.
Which makes it all the more commendable when someone like that just like does it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was lucky, you know. Frankly, I never really saw myself owning my own restaurant. I liked being a chef. I liked using other people's money to, like, you know, feed my creative needs or whatever. Yeah. And like I never really, frankly, wanted to take on the risk of my own, because like, why, when you can do it on someone else's dime and take your paycheck. And
what took you over the hump there?
You know, Jeff had the space available, and you know, he knew what I was doing. And he used to eat at Ada Street. He'd come down for Blackhawks games all the time. He'd stop and eat, and just he liked what I was doing. And you know, I think he's the kind of guy that he's always got his eye on what can make his town better. And he's like, you know, I think you opening a restaurant like this in Libertyville would make the town better, you know. And I think, you know, he kind of saw that there was a demand for this kind of restaurant and this kind of food up here. And he had the space. And, you know, when I kind of talked to my family about it, and they were all interested in investing, and I knew the team we would have, you know, to do this, I was just like,
you gotta go for it.
Man, I couldn't pass this opportunity up. It would never happen again like that. You know, I'd never have an opportunity to open a restaurant with such a good chance of being successful again. So I was like, you know, if I'm gonna cut my teeth and learn how to do it, there's no better way and there's no better place than, you know, right now and in downtown Libertyville. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it in Chicago. It's hyper competitive down there. And I wouldn't have done it in any other suburb. I mean, downtown Libertyville is just like happening.
It's kind of awesome. A sweet spot right now.
It's awesome.
I mean, and thanks, I don't know Jeff, but I tell you, I think about guys like that as a resident of Libertyville, sending my kids to school and just enjoying the downtown and the community aspect of this town is powerful. It's very potent. And guys like Jeff, I think of MJ Seiler. These guys had vision as it relates to Libertyville, and it's just my hat's off to those guys because I'm a beneficiary of that. And
we all are. I mean, they had a vision.
Jeff one day.
they executed it. I mean, I'm sure actually what's actually happened in downtown Libertyville has like far exceeded their vision even.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
You know, there's just like so many awesome activities and events and services, and like they're just the tiny details they think of. Like, you know, this year they installed all these lights on the top of the buildings.
It's amazing.
You know, I think Jeff kind of headed that one up, and he was like, it would just be really cool. So they light them up.
I love that attitude. It'd just be really cool.
It would be. And, you know, so like he wanted to do it for the holidays, and then they light it up on like First Fridays when they have special events in downtown, just to kind of make the town look that much more magical.
Yeah.
And, you know, one day Christine and I were driving back. It was right around Christmas time, and we went to the movies, and it was like snowing a little bit, and we're driving into town, and all the lights were on, and we're just like, man, it's like such a small thing that you would have never noticed was not there, but now that it is, you're like, it's magical. It really is. It made the town look so cool, and they just continue to do little things like that.
And I love that. There's really an entrepreneurial spirit, because I know I've been involved with Main Street years ago, but it's just this experimental thing. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. And if it works, awesome. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Let's try something else.
Exactly.
And that, I think, carries over for a lot of the businesses. So another question for you is, who are your, you talked about the guys that you were working with at Union League Club and some of the other restaurants. Who are your inspiration? Where do you go for inspiration? I think of the Danny Myers and Charlie Try. I always mention them in these interviews, because I think the world of those guys as it relates to just creativity, Melman, all those guys. Do you have a favorite or
I mean, those are definitely like the big boys, and I think they're great restaurateurs. I tend to draw a lot of my inspiration from chefs and chef restaurateurs. I just think they have a different mind and a different eye for restaurants, Don't get me wrong, the Melmans and the Danny Myers of the world, I mean, those guys make restaurants that are just cash machines, which is
Shake Shack,
which is an impressive feat,
Yeah.
But for me, the people I'm really kind of looking at right now are like David Chang is really cool, and he's got this really awesome spin on how he thinks food should be, and he's kind of taken the food world by storm right now. He's probably
where's he at?
He started in New York with a restaurant called Momofuku. He's a Korean American. He's got this very Korean spin on food, but he's also worked for like these great chefs like Daniel Boulud and like really, classical French guys. But he's taking food to a place that really like hasn't been taken before, and like he really tries to understand the science behind the food. So he's really inspirational to me for sure. Trying to think who else is like really on my radar. Jose Andres, really awesome guy, Spanish, has a really neat eye for food. But I like these chefs that really kind of, they kind of look at food in a way that most people don't, and I think those are the guys that really change the way we eat. And I think you'll see that, in the next 10 or 15 years, the way we eat is going to be shaped by these guys, I really do.
That's exciting.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. I mean, he does things like, I guess this is kind of a hard concept to explain, but when you eat Japanese food, there's bonito flakes is like a fermented, dried, smoked tuna product that they shave into these flakes, and it's used to flavor miso soup and dashi broth and all sorts of sauces that you eat at Japanese restaurants all the time, but you don't know it's in there.
Really?
Okay. And it's just this, it's this ingredient that creates this umami flavor that, everyone's talking about nowadays. So like, he's the kind of guy that thinks about that. He's like, yeah, that's really cool. They do that with fish. So he started doing it with pork. Because why not? And he started doing it with chicken. And he's like, how can we recreate this with different things to create this same kind of flavor profile, but different? How do we do it here in America? Tuna's not a big thing in America, but we've got pork and chicken like you wouldn't believe,
Yeah.
So he's constantly kind of thinking about food in a different way, and I just think that's really neat.
That's awesome. What, if you could recommend something on the menu that's going to be on the menu for the next couple months, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm not sure what's going to be on there for the next couple months.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean,
I like that.
We have some staples that never leave the menu, just because I think they're really awesome and they're really have a lot of broad appeal, and I'm also really proud of them. You know, we've got this Gruyere dip that's just like, it's a cheese crack. You know, it's stretchy
Cheese
and
crack, I love
gooey
it.
and messy, but it's, you know, it's cheese and caramelized onions and bacon. You know, I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
But no, you know, there's probably not going to be much on the menu that's the same in 2 months.
I haven't been in yet for the Sunday brunch,
Okay.
but again, going back to the pictures, the photos,
Yeah.
the biscuits and chicken.
Oh, the fried chicken biscuit
Oh my
sandwich.
God.
That'll be there in a couple months.
That'll be there.
stay-
Okay,
that'll
good.
stay.
Because I'm with all the kids stuff going on. It's
Yeah.
like, is that only on Sundays? Or?
Yeah, we only do brunch on Sundays.
Okay.
So originally we were open Tuesday through Sunday, and we were closed on Mondays.
Okay.
And Sunday nights were just kind of not really. They, you know, they were okay. They were intermittently busy, you know, but it wasn't really worth it. So we're like, you know, it's kind of a brunch town. Town's like just bustling, you know, especially in the
Yeah.
warmer months on Sunday
Right.
mornings. You know,
Right.
there's people everywhere. So we're like, you know, let's do brunch, and it's been working out well. It's definitely been.
What are the
worth
hours
it.
for brunch?
9 to 1.
9 to 1. All
Yeah,
right.
on Sundays only.
Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you doing
Yeah,
this.
no problem. Thank you.
It's great to sit down and chat with you and learn
Likewise.
more about Milwaukee Trace and your skills and the vision and all that stuff is awesome. So, and congratulations coming up on 1 year.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your marriage. I mean, what
It's a lot
what a year
happening
for
too.
you and
Yeah.
Christine, man. That's so cool. That is
It's been
very
great.
cool. So, thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. See you soon.
Yep.
That's a wrap, George. Dude, you are fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you so much.
I haven't even
I
had
could
my
talk-
coffee this morning
I
yet.
could talk to you for